Jefferson Strickland at his home in Salemburg, North Carolina, February the 6th, 2012.
My name is Jefferson Strickland. I grew up in the Salemburg area of here in western Sampson County. My family moved to Salemburg in 1947, my father having been raised up in the herring community on a place called Rabbit Street. So we moved from Rabbit Street to Bearskin to Salemburg, all three of which metro areas. So you know a little bit about my background now. I'm one of 6 children of Otto and Roxy Strickland. There are 4 boys and 2 girls. And today, as of today, there's 2 boys and 2 girls, 2 having died in years past, one by an accident and one by the cause of cancer. Lived a very happy life in Salemburg, a large family, but that was the mode of the day when people had larger families than do today. And Salemburg was such a wonderful place to grow up in, near Roseboro, fairly near Altarville, and just a few minutes ride over to Cleveland where the main movie theaters were at the time. But Salemburg was a beautiful place. We were called the Blue Jays, Salemburg Blue Jays, and the girls' teams of that day ruled basketball for 4 or 5 years, having during the one stretch of time there from the, let's say, late 40s to mid or so early 50s, went 4 years there and only lost just 1 or 2 games, having won the conference championship about every year. And I'll tell you this also, Salemburg was one of 4 teams to play in the Reynolds Coliseum in Raleigh. The first girls team to ever play was Salemburg and the 3 other teams, which they played a doubleheader. Salemburg at that first game played a little team called Ben Haven. Was the first game in about 51, 52, and then they played a team called Cary, which is now the city of Cary, a little later on in the second round. But let's talk about Honeyland Grill. This was a period of time after World War II. You got to also remember that World War II came off the heels of the Great Depression. And people talk about the Depression of the 30s and so on, but really the Great Depression, in my opinion, was not over, did not run its course, perhaps until the end of World War II, which was 1945 or so. Troops began to come home in 45 and 46, and things began to happen. A new prosperity came to Sampson County. A new prosperity came to North Carolina. All this changed things. People began to have money, and this prosperity touched the lives of all people, not just the upper, but lowers as well. And for the first time, almost all the families had money, a little bit of money anyway. And for the first time, people had cars and sometimes second cars, and many of the high school students were beginning to have cars. All this was part of the 50s, as we have become known as the Fabulous 50s. In the period of the Fabulous 50s was a time of a phenomenon that was created, a thing called drive-in grills. Some started in Raleigh, and the first one I remember ever hearing about, and I believe it's still there today, a little place called Toot and Tail, a little place called Garner, where with the old route of road that went into Raleigh, did not go the way it goes today, went through Garner and then had to turn. On that corner was Toot and Tail, and you can tell by toot your horn and tell them what you want to be served. Toot and Tail was the first one, and then all over the state, these little drive-in grills began to pop up. Well, so the same thing happened in Sampson County. About 1951, there's a Honeyland Grill, built by 2 guys, Johnny Holland and Stacy Honeycutt. The honey part being from Honeycutt and the land come from Holland. Well, it just so happens that Johnny Holland's father was John Love Holland Sr., the best known contractor of his day in Roseboro, Salemburg, perhaps even Sampson County. Well, Johnny's father built the grill in 1951. And after just a month or so of operating the grill, the 2 of them cooking the hamburgers, hot dogs, and French fries and cheeseburgers, they decided they needed someone to wait on the cars, the customers in the cars. And so they contacted me one night at church. During the Christmas program at Salemburg Baptist Church, they asked, said, would you like to work for us at the grill? I said, what's my job? Curb hop. I didn't even know what curb hop was, but they got me a little white jacket. And I went to work in 1951 at the Honeyland Grill in Salemburg. Might have been 1952, but somewhere along about that time. My little white jacket on, the starched white jacket, a little cap, a little tray. And I began to wait on cars that would come to be served. And this is what Honeyland Grill was all about. Hamburgers, hot dogs, milkshakes, cheeseburgers, and that was about the extent of the menu. Lots of people, a short order, and the place was always busy. Now, after a short while, after just a very short while, people began to come from everywhere. Clement, Roseboro, Mingo, Clinton. People throughout Sampson County would congregate at the Honeyland Grill. And so Johnny and Stacy saw a need to expand, and they doubled the size of Honeyland Grill. And the size remained that same size until the day it closed, 15 to 20 years later or so. And by enlarging the size, they were able to put a jukebox in there, as we become to know as a piccolo to some people. And you could play for a nickel or dime. I don't now recall how much it was, but probably it was started out being a nickel and then went to a dime. But had booths around and little sectional sofas there, a little gas heater to stay warm by in that piccolo. And there was some dancing, which was, for all these years, had been prohibited in the town of Salemburg because of some of the rules and regulations that had been passed by Mrs. Molly Jones from over at the college, which no dancing or pool shooting or anything like that was allowed in the city limits of Salemburg. So no dancing, but began to break through. This was part of the fabulous 50s and part of the phenomenon that was going on at the time. A breakthrough, a tremendous breakthrough in what we'll call the socialization process of young people. Young people being at the time from 14 to 19, 20, they all got along. And one thing about the Honeyland Grill in my days of working there, I only remember one fight. There might have been more, but only one fight comes to my mind. That was a boy from outside of Salemburg and a friend of mine from Roseboro. That was the only fight. Now, I won't talk about the outcome of it or anything like that, but that only lasted for a lick or so. Broke them up, and then they became friends, shook hands, and that was the end of that. But people came from everywhere. Now, talking about the drive-in grill, probably was the pre-runner to today's fast food restaurants. Cars would pull up, and for service, they would either blink their lights if they wanted service, or blow the horn. And to blow the horn is where the word toot and tail. Toot your horn would be what I mean by blowing the horn or blinking the lights, and you would know that their place wanted service. Or sometimes blinking the light meant they wanted you to come and take the tray off the window that you had mounted there. I only remember, now drinks were served in bottles at the time. Coca-Colas in a little 6.5 ounce bottles, and probably some Pepsis in 10-ounce bottles, but for the most part it was Cokes. But to carry 6 Cokes on a tray and mount that tray on the window was no small task. It was a large task and required some balance skills to be able to do that. But I only remember one Coke dropping. Not inside the car, it dropped on the tray and did not bother anything. But it was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. The busiest nights, as you can imagine, were Wednesday nights, perhaps Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. And it was open on Sunday afternoon, also open on Saturday afternoons as well. But after ball games, people would gather from all around Roseboro, Salemburg, Clement, Herring, and the crowds would just be large. I was, for a long time, was the only curve hop. And you can imagine the lights blinking and the horns blowing, trying to wait on all those cars. And I'd be awfully envious of the young people around me working, and they would be out there socializing. but I also got my little $5 paycheck too, which I was paid 50 cents an hour, and I got my tips, which was for the most part, if someone tipped you at the time, it was about a dime. They didn't give 10 cents on the dollar or anything like that. Tipped you about a dime, and hamburgers were fairly inexpensive, probably 20 cents. I don't recall, 20, 25 cents. Milkshakes a quarter also. So you could get almost a meal for you and your girlfriend for $1 anyway. But this phenomenon, as I had thought about this process, developed not just in Sampson County and Garner, Fayetteville. And I remember when I was up in Greenville, was a little bit unusual. This particular grill, driving grill up in Pitt County in Greenville, was the grill that you could park around, and they had a radio station there. And the radio station was mounted in a tree and had a little platform there in the summer, and the disc jockey would take requests from the people that came to the grill. And you could be there with your girlfriend and get songs and put requests in with your food order and have songs, have them dedicated right there at the drive-in. But Honeyland Grill, let's go back to Honeyland Grill. Wonderful place, lots of wonderful people, reasonable prices. It's just a time when people wanted to get along. People wanted to be with others, and it reached out from Salemburg, and people we became one large community. Everything west of Clinton would be at Salemburg on any night during the weekend that you can think about. The crowds would be there. I don't know how many cars, probably 50, 75, something like that. But they would be there, all tooting the horns and blinking the lights, wanting to serve us. So we're just there to spend the evening in Salemburg at the Honeyland Grill. I've been asked on several occasions, how was it that my family, my brothers, my son, and my larger family, how was it that we were involved in political activities and community involvement? And I did not know the answer to this until this past year. My cousin, Marlene Parks, who was Marlene McLeod Parks in the Pine Green area, her mother was moved and she came in possession of some very keepsake kind of items. And Marlene gave to me a little article, some material about our grandfather, who was John Robert Strickland, up in the Rabbit Street area. My grandfather was a justice of peace in Rabbit Street, or the larger community, a community called Herring. And at the time, the justice of peace, known as a JP, was a very influential person of that community. So, unless that's where it comes from, I don't know where. My brother Bobby, who's the mayor of Salemburg and has been for 30 years, my brother Frederick served on the town council in Salemburg. I've served as mayor pro tem of Roseboro and served 2 terms there. Now, in my 2nd term as commissioner, and have a son, has served in his 3rd term on town council in Clinton. This activities, I don't know, unless it came from my grandfather, John Robert Strickland, who started by serving in the Herring community of the Rabbit Street. The family moved from Rabbit Street to Bearskin. My grandmother had a farm down there, and that's what she gave to my father, which is why we moved. But we moved to Salemburg in 1947. I think my daddy might have been appointed to the town board for a while, but that was not his thing. He liked to support the officials, but he never never did seek election, I don't think. But my brother Bobby, who served 30 years, done a wonderful job as mayor of Salemburg, and my son Neil's done a good job of Clinton, and whatever little bit I have. I was fortunate enough to be 20 years ago, in 1990, to be appointed to the North Carolina Board of Transportation, which was I guess you could say my highest appointment. Was the North Carolina Board of Transportation. I was appointed by Governor Martin, and I served for a little over a year there in that position, mainly because of my involvement in Highway 24 in Sampson County, how I got started, but we just feel that serving in a position is a calling that several members of my family have. Why? I don't really know. But we feel that's a calling, and we see things, and we feel comfortable in that role. It's a role that we've played, and to some degree, I think all of my members of my family have played that role quite well as political or public servants, better said.